I woke up on another day that tasted like all the others. John was already up. The smell of stale coffee hung in the air. Leaving now, he mumbled. His usual morning farewell. Not a kiss, not a glance back. It had been like that for, God, I don't even remember how long. I used to feel a pang, a sort of sadness. Now I feel a dull sort of nothing. I trudged through my own routine. Toast I barely tasted. A shower that felt just as mechanical. Work was the usual. Spreadsheets, the hum of water cooler gossip, and Greg. What was it about him? That crooked smile. The way he made me actually laugh out loud instead of the polite chuckles I gave everyone else. It started small. Texts under the desk, about nothing much really. But it was something. A joke nobody else got. A compliment on my dress. Small but heady. I felt the thrill I hadn't in ages. I still thought about John, of course, mostly from duty. I made us the same boring dinners, did our laundry, all the things a good wife does. Yet, my mind kept wandering back to Greg's messages during those mindless chores. The next morning, I caught Greg's eye across the office. Something flickered, a silent invitation, and a jolt went through me. A jolt I knew wasn't just about stolen glances anymore. Did he feel it too? Could this actually be happening? I tried pushing it down. John was my husband. It was stupid, reckless, but that damn smile wouldn't leave my head. That night after dinner, when John was snoring beside me, I checked my phone. A simple, thinking of you, from Greg. My heart actually pounded. This was the wrong kind of exciting. I knew that, but some part of me, the part that had felt invisible for so long, craved it. Yet, before I could even think, my fingers started typing back. Me too. I hit send, and everything changed. That night was different. Everything was brighter, louder. Even the taste of the supermarket wine at home. I tossed and turned beside John, guilt and excitement warring in my head. My phone buzzed, Greg, asking if I was okay. Relief washed over me. Someone was paying attention. Someone saw me, saw the real me. The one buried under years of just existing. The lies came easily. Working late, I'd tell John. My voice barely wavering. It was a nasty project. I couldn't leave it halfway. He'd understand. Even the girls at work became part of the deceit. Drinks with the gang. I'd laugh to them, then slip away for stolen afternoons with Greg. Parking garages, dim cafes, hell, even the back seat of his car. These weren't romantic. They were rushed, frantic, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I'd never been that girl, the one who made reckless decisions. It felt exhilarating, a dangerous, exhilarating high-wire act. The constant fear of getting caught was intoxicating, a rush unlike anything I'd felt before. Close calls became part of the thrill, John almost seeing a text, a friend giving me that knowing look, narrowly missing an unexpected phone call while I was with Greg. But getting away with it was like fuel to the fire, each near miss pushing me further into this double life. Suddenly, everything about John was wrong. His chewed nails became disgusting, his stupid snoring intolerable. The way he never even looked when I walked into a room felt like an insult. Why did I put up with it for so long? Greg didn't miss a thing. Not my new haircut, a witty comment, the way I nervously straightened my skirt. He noticed me, made me feel like I was a person worthy of being noticed. It was like a drug, a dangerous one, but I craved it more with each passing day. I knew this was a runaway train, but I didn't want to get off. Every lie I told, every risk I took, made me feel a twisted sort of power. I wasn't just John's wife anymore. I had this whole other life, one built on shaky ground, but thrilling nonetheless. It was messy, reckless, and exhilarating as hell. A side of myself I never knew existed until now. Greg was gone on a week-long business trip, and it was a whiplash. One minute, I was consumed by him, his texts, planning our next rendezvous. Then, suddenly, there was this quiet emptiness. But, under the relief was a nagging dread. I missed him, yes, but it also felt like I'd been running on empty and just now realized how tired I was. That's when John began to change. Or maybe, he was the same, and I was finally seeing it. The way he lingered at the kitchen table after dinner, looking at me expectantly. It hadn't been this intense between us in ages. You okay? He asked one night. You see my euro different. The fork clattered against my plate. Different? My laugh sounded too high, even to me. I'm fine. Just tired, that's all. He didn't look convinced. I could feel him watching me even when I pretended to be absorbed in some stupid show on TV. One afternoon, John's phone buzzed with a text left on the countertop while he was in the garage. Stupid curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't a text, it was a photo of us at some work party years ago. The text above it just said, "Remember when she used to smile?" The room went icy. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. After that, I was on edge all the time. I'd wake up in a sweat, convinced John was holding my phone, staring at a message from Greg that I'd forgotten to delete. Maybe he was going through my stuff, or following me. Every slightly weird look from him was proof that he knew. The night before Greg's return, John asked, "Can we talk?" Like, really talk? He sounded so pathetically hopeful, it almost made me ill. "There's nothing to talk about," I snapped, the defensiveness coming too easily. "I'm going to bed." I didn't sleep awake. The truth hung in the air, a thick, suffocating fog I couldn't escape. Maybe it was time to end this thing with Greg, a clean break. But the thought of it felt like a part of me was dying. The weekend with Greg was booked, a cozy cabin by the lake, far away from prying eyes. The lie to John had rolled off my tongue easily, a work retreat I couldn't miss. Shame was there, a dull ache, but it was drowned out by the surge of anticipation. It felt like stealing back time that was rightfully mine. Packing felt like a game. 2 sets of everything. The sensible clothes for John. The things that made me feel like the woman I was with Greg stuffed at the bottom of my bag. I thought I was careful. But, as I rushed out the door, a single earring fell to the floor. It was one Greg had given me. I froze, the image of John finding it flashing in my head. It was too small, he'd never notice, I convinced myself. But maybe some part of me wanted him to. When I got to the cabin, there was no more room for doubts, only Greg. His smile, his touch, everything else, the world we'd left behind, faded away. Saturday night, after too much wine and laughter, I woke up with a pounding heart and a blurry phone screen. There were missed calls, a voicemail from John. "Hey, found this on the floor. Your earring? Call me back." His voice was flat, so different from his usual warmth. Shit, he knew. Dread washed over me. Every shared moment with Greg now felt toxic, tainted. I got home Sunday night to an empty house. John wasn't there, but neither were his things. Then I saw it. My earring on the kitchen counter, next to a note that simply said, "We need to talk." He was forcing my hand. John walked in an hour later, looking 10 years older, exhaustion etched on his face. He held up that damned earring. "Please, just tell me," he said, his voice breaking. The words jammed in my throat. Then, a sort of rage flared up inside me. Rage at John for his pathetic sadness, and at myself for this whole disastrous mess. "Yes," I spat out, "yes, I'm seeing someone else. He's better, Kinder. He actually makes me happy." The words hung in the air, brutal and sharp. The look in John's eyes was unbearable. A mix of devastation and something like disgust. It was the final push. Years of stifled resentment, of unvoiced disappointments bubbled to the surface, and neither of us could have prepared for what came next. After I slammed the door and stormed out, I figured that was it. End of story. John would lick his wounds. I'd move on with Greg, and we wouldn't have to look at each other ever again. Turns out, I'd never been more wrong about anything in my life. The next few weeks were a blur. John moved into the spare room, the house heavy with unspoken pain. Greg was all concerned calls and dramatic texts, but I barely had the energy to respond. The thrill was gone, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. John had disappeared too. Physically he was there, going through the motions, but his eyes looked dead inside. Then things changed. I noticed John coming home later, leaving before I woke up. He was on his phone all the time. Not like he was talking to anyone, more like searching, scrolling. Once, I caught him staring at my Instagram. Stupid of me. I hadn't made it private after the whole Greg thing started. Then one morning, I felt the shift, that same icy fear I had before John discovered the earring. He looked different, not defeated, something sharper. Going to be late tonight, he said, a forced lightness to his voice. Don't wait up. That night, I heard him leave again. Curiosity, and a desperate need to know what the hell he was up to, wouldn't let me sleep. A stupid move, I knew it, but I crept out and followed his car. That's when I saw him pull up outside Greg's apartment complex. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd throw up. The world turned upside down. Greg, my savior, my escape, was now somehow mixed up in John's silent revenge plot. I had to warn him. As I approached Greg's familiar door, I heard the voices, John's, tight with anger, then Greg's smarmy, dismissive replies. He hadn't cared, not really. He saw me as an escape from his own boring life, just like I'd seen John. I could hear the fight escalate, a scuffle, then silence. A terrible, bone-chilling silence. I don't know what made me push the door open. What I saw will haunt me forever. It wasn't the John the first knew at all. It's like those years of quiet resentment had built up, then broken, leaving something unpredictable and terrifying in its place. The air around me crackled with tension as I drove home. I didn't know what I'd find, only that it couldn't be good. I kept replaying the scene at Greg's, the look in John's eyes as he stood over Greg's battered body. My rescuer had become my captor. When I pulled into the driveway, my hand trembled as I turned off the ignition. Every instinct screamed at me to run, disappear, but I was frozen. Whatever game John was playing, I had to face it. He was in the kitchen, eerily calm. Like that whole scene at Greg's hadn't happened. Sit down. His voice was flat, and I felt a shiver down my spine. We need to talk. My mouth opened. Words of apology, of explanation, swirling in my head, but he cut me off. Not you, him. He gestured towards the hallway, my blood turning to ice. Greg's. Here, I stuttered, terror and confusion washing over me. A slow, cruel smile spread across John's face. I invited him, figured we could all clear the air. He seemed surprised, he said, savoring the word. But he's agreed to join us. I felt fate. Greg was here, in my house. John had lured him in with promises of what? A truce, understanding? I thought of Greg's bloodied face in that apartment, and my stomach churned. John motioned me to sit, an unnerving glint in his eyes. I was a pawn in a twisted game I didn't understand, and I couldn't stop the question pounding in my head. Who was the real monster here? Greg's not a fighter, I whispered, trying to find some logic in the chaos. You won't. My voice trailed off as we heard footsteps. Greg emerged from the shadows, his cocky swagger replaced by a trembling fear. When he saw me, his eyes went wide. You too? He stammered, a whine creeping into his voice. This is insane, man. I get it, you're pissed, but... Sit, John snapped, pointing to the chair across from me. I sat, a silent witness as John began to weave a chilling web. He exposed our every line, every sordid detail, his voice growing colder with every word. Greg stammered out pathetic excuses, but it was clear, the upper hand was gone. The air was thick with dread, and the question blazed in my mind. What was going to happen? And what role did I play in whatever horrific ending John had planned? John turned toward me. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't end in bloodshed. I was wrong. You want to be with him, right? John's voice was like a snake slithering over ice. Go on. Tell him how much you love him. How you can't live without him. I recoiled, all rising in my throat. Greg stared at me, his eyes pleading for me to deny it all, to save myself. But what was there to save? I'd made my choices. My voice came out barely above a whisper as I choked out the words Greg had whispered to me countless times. I love you. I can't go on without you. Lies had never tasted so bitter. Greg's pathetic relief turned into a smug grin. See, it's not my fault, man. She came to me. John cut him off with a cruel laugh. Oh, I don't blame you, Greg, I understand. He pulled out a folder, thick with papers, and tossed it onto the table. Greg's eyes widened. I did some digging, John said in a chillingly conversational tone. Turns out, this isn't your first rodeo, Greg. Quite the track record, in fact. The blood drained from Greg's face. I watched, horrified. as John laid out every sort of detail. Past affairs, women whose lives he'd ruined. This wasn't about me. It was about revenge for every woman Greg had ever used. Bank accounts, investments, that fancy car. It's all a house of cards, John continued. A few calls, some well-placed leaks, and poof. Gone. Along with your reputation. Then, he did the unthinkable. He turned to me. You'll send that email, the one detailing his lies, to his boss. You'll forward me copies of those transfers to all those secret accounts, right, darling? His voice strict with icy venom. You know, the ones you open under fake names to keep his money safe? I was trapped. I'd always prided myself on being smart, but all my schemes had led me here. A conspirator in my own downfall. My hands shook as I reached for the folder. John's eyes locked on mine. My betrayal was now a tool for his torment. As I began to type, Greg's desperate pleas crashed against my ears, his world crumbling. Yet, I felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, just a dead numbness spreading through my veins. In the end, they both got exactly what they deserved. John still hadn't come home. The house, always too quiet, now felt like it was closing in on me. Same old leftovers in the fridge. Same old mindless TV shows droning on. Nights were the worst. Lying there beside him, I could hear the space between us. A chasm filled with unspoken resentments and a weariness that went bone deep. It was this gnawing emptiness, more than boredom, that made me reach for my phone the day of that company picnic. Don't get me wrong, John's a good guy. Works hard, provides, all that stuff. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being a couple and became more like roommates. Those little touches, inside jokes, the way he used to look at me like I was the only woman in the world, all gone. I missed feeling desired. Damn it. So yeah, when I saw Mike across the crowd at that picnic, it was like a jolt. We used to have this easy rapport, a way of bouncing ideas off each other. He hadn't changed much, maybe a little older, little wiser, but that damn smile still lit up his whole face. We fell into conversation like no time had passed, our laughter cutting through the dull chatter around us. Then, just a casual touch as he passed me a drink, and a shiver ran down my spine. Nothing major, probably barely noticeable, but it felt like a spark I hadn't felt in years. The lies started small, running late at the office, became stolen coffee breaks with Mike. Texts that should have been about grocery lists became whisper jokes and flirtations that had me blushing like a teenager. In my head, it was a harmless distraction. It wasn't like John and I had this passionate, all-consuming love anymore. I craved that rush of feeling wanted, feeling alive, and Mike gave me that. But the guilt started gnawing at me almost immediately. Every time I smoothed down my dress for a work lunch with Mike, John's face would flash in my mind. Sure, he was oblivious, but that didn't make it right. Deep down, I knew I couldn't keep fooling myself, thinking this was just a fling. Every text I sent Mike, every lie I told John, pulled me further down a path I wasn't sure I wanted to be on. I just didn't know how to turn back. That night with Mike at the dimly lit bar after work felt electric. Our knees brushing under the table, laughter bubbling up as we traded stories. The way he held my gaze, just a bead too long. It ignited something in me that had been dormant for far too long. The realization itself was a shock. When did I become a woman content with fading into the background of her own life? I knew I was playing with fire, but it felt strangely exhilarating. The lies were easy, embarrassingly so. Long meeting tonight. Sorry. I text John. My cheeks flushed not from work stress, but from the thrill of it all. It started to feel like a game, one where I got to be someone bolder than John's dutiful wife. The stolen lunches with Mike, the quick rendezvous in empty conference rooms during work calls. My previously predictable routine was suddenly shot through with heart-pounding exhilaration. I was alive, desired, seen for the first time in ages. Sure, there were close calls. John almost catching me on the phone mid-laugh with Mike, a friend mentioning my glow, and asking if I had a new workout regimen or something. Each time, I managed to wriggle out of it, and with each escape, I grew bolder, fueled by some sick desire to push fate further. Then, John started to change too. He'd linger by the doorway when I was getting ready for my girls' nights, looking at me with a question in his eyes. I hated that questioning look, but it weirdly motivated me, twisted and tangled as it sounds. Hair looks nice, he'd mumble, an awkward attempt at a compliment. It wasn't the sweet nothings Mike was whispering in my ear, but I used those moments to justify my choices. John was so clueless, so checked out, it only made it easier to convince myself this wasn't hurting him, that I deserved to feel special, alive, wanted. The problem was, the more I lied, the harder it was to look at John at all. The little annoyances I'd always brushed off, the way he chewed too loudly, his same boring stories repeated endlessly, now became unbearable. My whole world started to shift, and with it, my excuses for my betrayal became stronger, amplified by a mix of desperation and a misplaced sense of entitlement. I should have been scared, disgusted even, but the thrill of the dissection, the danger of it all, that hooked me deeper every day, a dangerous, addictive poison I couldn't resist. My hands were shaking as I packed for my cabin weekend with Mike. Excitement, nerves, shame. Everything swirled in a toxic cocktail that tasted like freedom and poison at the same time. I had to leave my phone behind, too obvious, too stupid a risk. It was like cutting my lifeline, but also a strange relief. The drive to the cabin was blurry. I'd lost the ability to focus on anything but Mike, the stolen weekend, thrown caution to the wind for once. Then, as I was unpacking, I saw it. A single earring tangled in my scarf, the one Mike had gifted me. I almost threw up. It was always going to end in disaster. I knew that somewhere deep down, this was the moment it all came crashing down. John called, his voice strained. I found something. Dad, are you going to tell me what's going on? Or do I have to figure it out myself? My stomach turned to ice. He knew. Every lie, every dissection, shattered at my feet. But what terrified me more than his anger was the hurt in his voice. It cut deeper than any rage could have. What came out of my mouth wasn't an apology, but an explosion fueled by years of unspoken frustration. Yes, damn it. I'm with someone. Someone who sees me, someone who actually makes me feel alive. I choked out the words, tears of shame and defiant anger mixing. You were never there, John. Too busy, too tired, too damn checked out to even bother. His silence was deafening. Then, with a coldness I'd never heard before, he said, "Fine. We'll finish this when you get back." The moment I hung up, I knew there was no coming back from this. I'd driven a wrecking ball through our marriage, without stopping to think where the pieces would fall. A few days later, I arrived home to a chillingly empty house. John wasn't there, but a note on the kitchen counter stopped my heart. Meet me at Mike's. 8 p.m. sharp. Let's sort this out once and for all. Picture this. I'm at this crammed city cafe, the kind of place where the coffee's strong enough to kickstart a dead battery. I'm there, scrolling through my phone, not looking for anything in particular, when this new guy from work, Alex, just appears. Like out of nowhere. He's got this vibe, you know? Like he's just come off some wild adventure and decided to drop by. We start chatting and damn, there's this spark. Not the static kind you get from rubbing socks on the carpet, but the real, fireworks kind. And yeah, I know, I've got this shiny ring on my finger that's supposed to mean something, but right then, it's like it's not even there. Fast forward a bit, and I'm on my way home, deleting text from Alex faster than my conscience can keep up. It's like playing a twisted game of hide and seek with my guilt. I walk through the door, and there's Tom, my husband, looking all comfortable and familiar. I give him this peck on the cheek, babbling about how my day was just the usual pile of nothing special. He buys it. Or at least, he pretends to, which is all I need right then. Things with Alex, they start ramping up. We're finding all these secret spots around the city, places I never knew existed. It's like we're in our little world, sharing bits and pieces of ourselves. Dreams that felt too silly to tell Tom, fears that seemed too dark. It's intoxicating, being with someone who makes you feel like the person you've always wanted to be, not just the role you ended up playing. Of course, I've got to keep the act up at home. Telling Tom I'm working late has become my go-to lie. I spend my evenings at Alex's place, and every time I say I won't let it go further, but it always does. The guilt's there, nagging at me, but I shove it down, hard. But Tom's not an idiot. He starts picking up on things. The late nights, the way I'm suddenly always on my phone, how I flinch a little when he touches me. He starts asking questions, and I'm dodging them like a pro. Just stressed from work, I say, or, you're imagining things, babe. But every lie makes his frown deepen, and I can see something breaking in his eyes. Then, one day, I'm looking for a scarf or something in our bedroom, and I find this envelope in Tom's drawer. It's tickets to Paris, for our anniversary. My heart just drops. He'd been planning this surprise, trying to rekindle whatever spark we had left, and here I am, throwing it all away for some fling. I feel this wave of regret, so strong it almost knocks me over, but I push it aside. Can't afford to dwell on it. Not when there's no turning back. Things with Alex, they keep heating up. We end up taking this trick together, pretending it's for work. A whole weekend in this little seaside town, where nobody knows us. It's like playing house, walking hand in hand along the beach, dinners by candlelight. It feels like a dream, one I don't want to wake up from. But every dream ends, right? So there I am, living this double life, caught between the safe, familiar love I have with Tom and the wild, intoxicating thing I've got with Alex. And I keep telling myself I can handle it, that I can keep juggling these two worlds without dropping the ball. But deep down, I know it's only a matter of time before everything comes crashing down. And the worst part of me can't wait to watch it happen. So, you know how things were getting all kinds of complicated with Alex? Well, it all started to unravel faster than a cheap sweater. Picture this. We're out grabbing lunch, trying to act all normal. But let's be real. We were anything but. And who of all people spots us? Jenna from accounting. Jenna, with her gossip radar that's always on high alert. She doesn't say anything, just shoots us this look. And I just know, it's game over. Fast forward to the next bombshell. Tom, my husband, who's been getting more and more distant, suddenly hits me with this curveball. He's holding his phone, face all kinds of thunderous, showing me these photos. Photos of me and Alex, looking way too cozy. And they're not from Jenna. They're sent by some anonymous hero trying to save the day. Care to explain? He asks. Voice so cold it could freeze hell over. I'm caught. No two ways about it. So, I spill everything. It's like watching a car crash, you know? You want to look away, but you just can't. Tom's face, it just crumbles. And then, he's gone. Packs a bag and leaves, off to crash with his buddy Mark. The silence he leaves behind is deafening. So, what do? I move in with Alex, because that's obviously the next logical step in this disaster of a love story. It's thrilling at first. Waking up next to him, no sneaking around. It feels like freedom. But it's not long before that shiny new toy starts to lose its luster. Alex, Mr. Adventure, starts showing his true colors. Commitment? Might as well be speaking Klingon to the guy. And his eye starts wandering like he's shopping for the next best thing. One night, I overhear him on the phone, bragging to a buddy like I'm some kind of trophy. Just another conquest. He laughs and man, does that sting. I thought we had something real, but turns out, I was just another notch on his bedpost. That's when the paranoia kicks in. I start doing the one thing I swore I'd never do. I snoop through his phone while he's asleep. And surprise, it's like a flirtatious message buffet in there. Text from women whose names I don't even recognize, all cozy and familiar with Alex. It hits me then, like a slap in the face with a wet fish. What the hell am I doing? I traded in my marriage, my stability, for this? For late night creeping and doubts and feeling like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop? So, there I am, stuck in this mess of my own making, living with a guy who sees me as just another conquest, haunted by the wreckage of a marriage I torpedoed for a love that turned out to be as shallow as a kiddie pool. And let me tell you, the view from rock bottom? It's not great at all. Alright, so let me paint you a picture of where things took a nosedive. There I was, thinking I could confront Alex about all those flirty texts without it turning into World War III. Boy, was I wrong. We're in the middle of his cramped living room, which suddenly feels way too small, and I bring up the messages. His face goes from confused to furious in like 0 to 60. You're being paranoid. He snaps, and controlling. Just like you were with Tom. Ouch, right? Like, twist the knife, why don't you? Feeling like a deflated balloon. I reach out to Sarah, my go-to friend for all crises, expecting a shoulder to cry on. But instead of sympathy, I get a cold dose of reality. What did you expect? She says, her voice icy. You made this bed. Now lie in it. Talk about tough love. Or just tough. Really. With nowhere left to turn, I dial Tom's number, my heart pounding like it's trying to break free. But what greets me isn't his voice. It's that robotic message telling me the number's been changed. It feels like someone's just punched me in the gut. The finality of it, you know? A few days later, I'm walking past Tom's house. It's masochistic maybe, but I can't help myself. And there he is, in the living room, laughing with some woman. Not just any laugh, but that head thrown back, genuinely happy kind of laugh. The kind I haven't seen in months, maybe even years. It's like a dagger right through my heart. Just when I think things can't get any worse, Alex drops his own bombshell. He's got a job offer in another city, and he's taking it, whether I'm in the picture or not. The way he says it, so matter of fact, like our whole thing was just a temporary arrangement, it floors me. So, there I am, watching him pack his bags, feeling this mix of disbelief and heartbreak. The door slams shut behind him, and the silence that follows is deafening. I'm left in this empty apartment, surrounded by the remnants of what I thought was love, but was really just a mirage. The fallout's immediate, without a job and with my reputation in tatters, thanks to the affair becoming public knowledge. I'm like this pariah. My professional network? Gone. Job opportunities? Non-existent. It's like I've been blacklisted in every way that counts. So, I'm jobless, loveless, and pretty much friendless, stuck in an apartment that feels more like a prison than a home. The realization hits me hard. I traded everything for what I thought was love, but ended up with nothing. It's a tough pill to swallow, knowing you're the architect of your own disaster. But there it is, the bed I made. And now I have no choice but to lie in it. Let me tell you, getting rock bottom doesn't even begin to cover it. One day, I'm mindlessly scrolling through social media, trying to distract myself from the mess that's my life, when I see it. Pictures of Tom and his new girlfriend, all smiles and sunshine. They look so happy. It's like a punch to the gut, seeing him move on while I'm still stuck in this nightmare I created. Then, the messages start coming in. Anonymous, of course, but each one like a dagger. Homewrecker, you got what you deserved. It's relentless. Each ping of my phone is like a reminder of how far I've fallen. So, I do what any sane person would do when they're at their lowest. I go to our old favorite cafe, thinking maybe, just maybe, I'll find a piece of myself there. Instead, I overhear this couple at the next table. Did you hear about the woman who ruined her marriage for a fling? They whisper, not knowing I'm right there, leaving proof of their gossip. It's humiliating, like I've become some cautionary tale. Feeling like I've got nothing left to lose, I reach out to friends of neglected, hoping for a lifeline. But it's like I'm toxic. They'll either ignore my calls or greet me with this chilly politeness that's worse than outright hostility. I'm an outcast, and it's all my own doing. Then, just when I think things can't get any worse, I get hit with a legal notice. Tom's demanding the return of the expensive gifts he gave me over the years, plus some sort of financial settlement. It's like the universe is kicking me while I'm down. So, I start selling everything. Jewelry, clothes, even the damn gifts Alex gave me, trying to scrape together enough to cover my debts and legal fees. Each item sold feels like I'm erasing bits of myself, bits of my past. And then, the eviction notices start, one after the other, piling up like some sick joke. My financial instability isn't just a threat anymore, it's a reality. I'm on the brink of losing everything, and there's no safety net waiting to catch me. So, here I am, standing amidst the ruins of the life I once knew, selling off pieces of my past just to keep afloat. It's a sobering reality, realizing you're the architect of your own disaster. But maybe, just maybe, hitting rock bottom means the only way left to go is up. At least, that's what I keep telling myself to get through the day. So, there I was, at rock bottom, staring at my phone like it was some kind of lifeline. I'm thinking maybe Alex, Maybe he'd understand. Maybe he'd. But who am I kidding? I go to call, to text, anything, and bam, blocked. Every single way to reach him, shut down. It's like I never existed to him. Talk about a wake-up call. Huh? Desperation's got a funny way of pushing you places you never thought you'd go. So, I find myself slinging coffee and pie at this local diner. Me, who used to lead meetings and close deals, now I'm dodging syrup spills and enduring those pity looks from customers who think they know my story. They don't have a clue. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, as I'm wiping down tables, in walks Tom. With her. They don't even see me at first. I'm just part of the scenery, invisible. But then, our eyes meet, just for a second. And there's this flash of a euro something. Not recognition, not quite. More like surprise, maybe pity. They eat, they leave, and there's this generous tip on the table. Like a charity case. It stings more than I thought possible. That night, I'm sitting in my tiny, cramped apartment, you know, the kind where you can touch both walls if you stretch out your arms, and I start writing this letter to Tom. Not that I'll send it. It's more like talking to a ghost. I pour everything into it, every regret, every wish for his happiness. It's cathartic, but also like reopening a wound just to watch it bleed. And as if my personal soap opera needed more viewers, next thing I know, my downfall's being picked over on gossip blogs. A cautionary tale of infidelity, they call me. Great. As if I don't replay my mistakes every night in vivid technicolor, trying to scrape some semblance of a life back together. I move into this apartment that's so run down. It's practically a caricature of starting over, but it's mine. In all its leaky faucet, creaky floorboard glory. I'm surrounded by the ghosts of my past life, trying to convince myself this is just a temporary setback. Then, because life apparently hadn't kicked me enough, I end up in the hospital, some stupid, scary health thing that comes out of nowhere, and lying there, in that too big hospital bed. It hits me how alone I am. No Alex, no Tom, not even a friend to call. It's just me, facing down my vulnerability like it's the final boss in a game I never wanted to play. So, here's the thing. When you're lying in a hospital bed, with nothing but your thoughts and the steady beep of some machine tracking your existence, you get real clear on a few things. Like how much of a mess I've made of things, and how there's no magic reset button. Starting over isn't just about finding a new place to live or a new job. It's about dealing with the mess you've made, inside and out. It's rough, knowing you're the architect of your own disaster. But there's also this weird, stubborn spark inside me that refuses to go out. Maybe it's pride, or maybe it's just plain old survival instinct, but I'm not ready to be counted out. Not yet. Okay, so there I was, feeling like my life's been tossed into a blender set on high. But then, I figure, maybe there's a way to piece some bit of me back together, you know? So, I decide to volunteer at this local shelter. It's not much, but it feels like a step in the right direction. A way to do something good out of the wreck I've become. The shelter, man. It's like this tiny beacon of hope in my storm. Helping out there, feeding people who've got even less than I do. It gives me this sense of purpose, I guess. But even in this place, where everyone's running from their own demons, I can't escape mine. The whispers start up, not mean, but not kind either. That's her, the one who, yeah, my story's out, and it's like this shadow I can't shake off. Then, out of the blue, I get this letter. It's from Tom. My heart stops for a sec because, for this tiny, stupid moment, I think maybe, but no, it's a goodbye, in his neat handwriting, telling me he's found peace, he's moving on, and he's wishing me the same. It's kind, but it cuts deep. It's like he's closing a door I didn't even know I was hoping would stay open just a crack. So, there I am, letter in hand, feeling like I've been gut punched, when this wild thought hits me. What about Alex? Maybe, just maybe, there's something there, right? But a quick dive into the black hole of social media slams that door shut too. He's engaged, looking all happy and in love. And there it is, my past and my possible future, both telling me I'm not part of their story anymore. Feeling like I'm running out of options, I sign up for this night class. It's some business course, supposed to help me get my career back on track. I'm there, trying to blend into the background, but it's like I'm wearing this neon sign. They know who I am, what I did. Making connections, networking, it's a minefield. Every conversation feels like walking on eggshells. My reputation, this giant elephant in the room. But here's the thing. Despite the whispers, the pitying looks, and the doors slammed in my face, I'm still here. I'm fighting, clawing my way out of this pit I dug for myself. The shelter, the class, it's not much, but it's something. A start. And maybe, just maybe, it's enough to build something new on. Because at the end of the day, that's all any of us can do, right? Take the rubble of our past mistakes and try to build something better. So, yeah, my life's a mess, but for the first time in a long time, I'm feeling like maybe, just maybe, I can clean it up. So, here's the deal. After everything that went down, I found myself scraping together what little I had left, which wasn't much, let me tell you. But among the rubble, there was this one thing I still knew how to do, my work. So, I hatched this plan to start my own online business. Think small, nothing fancy, just using the skills I hadn't managed to mess up. Launching the business was like jumping into the deep end without knowing how to swim. It was tough, tougher than I thought it would be. Orders trickled in slower than a leaky faucet, and there were days I thought about throwing in the towel. But something inside me, maybe stubbornness, or maybe just sheer desperation, wouldn't let me quit. Then, out of nowhere, this former colleague of mine reaches out. We hadn't talked in ages, not since my life had turned into a soap opera episode. He had this freelance project and thought of me. Can you believe that? It was like this tiny sliver of light in a whole lot of darkness. The chance to prove I wasn't a complete write-off. Working on that project felt like coming home after being lost at sea. It was hard, sure, but it reminded me of who I used to be before all the drama. When it wrapped up, the client was thrilled, and word started to spread. It was a win, but it was also a reality check. The professional world had spun on without me, and catching up wasn't going to be as easy as I hoped. Slowly but surely, my little online venture began to find its footing. Orders started coming in with a bit more regularity, and I could finally see a glimmer of something that looked like stability. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and it was honest. For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of real pride. But then, this local newspaper decides to run a piece on me. Local women's fight back from scandal, or some nonsense like that. Suddenly, I'm back in the spotlight, but not in a way I'd ever wished for. The article talked about my resilience, sure, but it also dredged up all the sordid details of my past. Just like that, I'm the talk of the town again, and not in a good way. So, I muster up the courage to show my face at this community event, thinking maybe, just maybe, people have moved on. Spoiler alert. They haven't. The whispers, the stares, it's like high school all over again. Only with higher stakes and deeper scars. That night, I'm back in my apartment, this tiny space that's become my world, and it hits me. I've come a long way, yeah, but at what cost? My marriage, my reputation, the love I thought was real. It's all gone, burned to the ground by the choices I made. And there's no going back, no magic reset button. Sitting there, in the quiet, I finally let myself feel it all. The loss, the regret, the faint hope of something new. It's not much, but it's a start. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now.